Okay.
Is Hank going to join you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come here.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. No, we're concerned about an animal out here.
Oh.
420 USA.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, come here and say happy 420 to Al and Mary Lynn.
And the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Here's Hank. We're newlyweds. Hank, we got married at Mary Lynn's place. So we're a happy 420. Woo!
Well, it's a good day.
Yeah.
Great day.
Yeah,
You can say hi to Mike Krawitz too. We'll let you say hi to Krawitz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, we've been doing 420 since the day before tomorrow, or yesterday, or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. We've been doing it since the day before tomorrow.
Whatever works.
I want you to know, if you haven't, I've been doing this now since 4:20 yesterday, our time.
Right. You've been on all night long. Yeah.
That's our police. Grounds for opposing bail. I want to down here. I'm on house arrest
Oh, you
because they watched me allegedly having a 420 session one morning live on my Facebook page. And they complained about it and said they were investigating it, and the judge refused to change my bail conditions. So I'm still on 24-hour curfew. So I'm not smoking anything. I'm not allowed to smoke anything.
Oh, that's
So the reason I turn my camera off when it's
so
420
sorry.
is to ensure that I am showing solidarity with you people who are smoking legally. So there you go. I don't want to spend time in prison.
That's just
Again.
But that's so sad. I'm so sorry.
It's part of the stupid games that people play
Yes.
in the final throes of prohibition. It's still happening all over the world. Prohibition still exists. And all we can do is keep looking at you guys and all of the legal jurisdictions that you have in your country, and it's growing and expanding. That just adds weight to our argument. I'm not a second-class citizen. When Australia legalizes and I say to my government, what makes you think that an Australian is more responsible that they're allowed to smoke a joint, but we're not? That's a nonsense. And it's true. It doesn't matter where it is. You guys are allowed to smoke a joint in so many different places in the US. We like pointing at you guys and saying to our government, look at them. Look at them.
Well, you know, good for us, but for many of the Americans that do that. But the sad part is it's our federal government that's been the big bully worldwide, you know.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
Scaring all those countries. Yeah.
For political reasons.
And they haven't changed. The federal government is not changing. There's temps. It's just getting to where it's looking like there could possibly be a change depending on how the next election goes. But unfortunately, there might, because of who won the primaries, you know, who's going to be the Democratic nominee. Maybe.
You have to be honest, though, when you all think about it, and I'm looking at you guys, you've been campaigning for years, all of you. Every day we get up, we think, is this the day? Are we going to win it today? It just happens every day. Something goes on in our brains that make us think we only need to do this for a little bit longer and we'll be through. We're nearly there now. Man, I've been doing that and saying that to myself for more than 20 years.
I started working on this mountain, and I had a spoon in my hand, and I got really high, and I just forgot what I was doing. And the next thing I know, I was on the other side of the bloody mountain, and there was a beautiful tunnel right through it. I don't think I did it alone, but honestly, it just was something that we just focused on. Hey, you know, Al and Mary Lynn are here, and Al and Mary Lynn did a few of our sessions earlier. They taped that great recording with Dr. Lester Grinspoon's son, Dr. Peter Grinspoon, also with John Getman and some of the other recordings that we played in the middle of the night while we were cruising through China and Russia and some of the crazy places that we went in the islands. But I wanted to just introduce Al and Mary Lynn, and kind of the way I want to do it is sort of in a very quick history timeline. You know, if you look at cannabis medicine 3 ways, so you got traditional cannabis use as a medicine. You got cannabis medicinal use, you know, actual cannabis medicinal use, and then you got medical marijuana. And if you look at traditional use of cannabis, that goes back, as I understand it, the very first printed books on medicine had cannabis in it already. We're talking about eons, thousands of years that we've got knowledge on traditional use of cannabis. On medicinal cannabis, we go back to kind of the mid 1800s when Dr. O'Shaughnessy, working under Great Britain's banner, brought back voluminous amounts of information about the medicinal use of cannabis in India, really bringing the traditional use into the modern world. But when you talk about medical marijuana, that's a different beastie. You know, we had marijuana. I'm not sure if you went to someone in the late 50s or 60s and you said something about medical marijuana, they didn't even know what you were talking about particularly. I don't remember seeing any reference to it in the magazines or anything. The first person that brought it up was Bob Randall. I talked about him last night, you know, patient zero, the guy who started the ball rolling by refusing to give up his weed and fought in federal court and got the right to use it. That program where he was getting those joints from the federal government is the same program that Al was talking about. And if I characterize Patients Out of Time correctly, Patients Out of Time being the group that Al and Mary Lynn founded, kind of around Bob Randall and around the other 10 or so patients that they had communicated with and were in contact with and working with, that were actually getting these big tins of marijuana cigarettes from the US federal government every month. They were a living example of the hypocrisy and the contradiction in realities and evidence and fact that is the US federal marijuana policy. And to kind of drive that home and to educate people, they grabbed the science that Bob had brought to the world on cannabis for use of cancer treatment, cannabis use of glaucoma treatment. It introduced us to a whole world of doctors like Dr. Meshulam from Israel, whose team found THC and discovered, you know, the thing that, you know, we're basically started all the research going, because without the research on THC and without the research on the endogenous cannabinoid receptors and all, we wouldn't even have a science to work from. And these doctors, Patients at a Time, brought together in Iowa, I think was the first one, wasn't it, guys? And had a accredited meeting where doctors came in and presented the evidence on cannabis. Patients At a Time now is almost relegated to the history books, even though it's still operating and still doing these meetings. The world has grown so exponentially as a result of its own work. It's one of the ironies that it's almost you know, put itself out of business. But the thing is that the knowledge base that was created, I mean, tell us, guys, what do you think the knowledge base Patients At a Time has played? What role has it played in the landscape of Prop 215 getting passed and the world latching onto this concept of medical marijuana? Am I right that Patients At a Time was basically the engine that took the fuel from Bob Randall and made it live, made it a worldwide phenomenon?
You're exactly correct.
We always like to say that, you know, we wanted to make the scientists, the cannabis researchers, into rock stars. Nobody, you know, they keep saying there's no research, and it's like, yes, there is. It's all over the, you know, going on all over the world. You know, and that was one of the goals, was to bring those scientists to clinicians in a, you know, at a conference, at a setting where clinicians, they were getting their continuing ed credits and actually hearing from the scientists about the endocannabinoid system in cannabis. Yes.
What we tried to do through education was replace myth and opinion with science, and to
That's how we win.
Yeah, and impress our medical community and our nursing community that the science should be what they're paying attention to, and not the opinions of lawyers and cops.
Yep.
And I think that Marilyn and I and the few folks that joined with us those days, I'm proud of what we did.
Oh, you should be, Al. You guys have been, it's just, the Patients Out of Time has been a vanguard for medical marijuana research and publicizing it and giving it outlet for it.
Yeah, but you know, I look at it, true, but I also look at it as Marilyn and I are both veterans of the United States Navy, And I've pointed out over the hours of this show has been on that some of the super duper leaders of this cannabis movement stuff, Dennis Perone, Jack Herr,
Michael Krawitz.
I mean, these people, I don't know. I don't know what it is about veterans, but when they get on to something, they're going to do it until it's done. And I certainly agree that from New Zealand to the United States, that this is not done. We've come a hell of a long way. Oh God, from where Marilyn and I started, it's like night and day. But it's not done. It needs to get done. And I'm so happy to be on this show and let people know that all you guys exist and all this stuff went down. Because these younger folks, they don't understand what it took. You know, they just don't get it. They think now we're just going to get CBD and make some money. It's not what it's about. It's never been about that. I don't know anybody on the screen I've seen in the last 24 hours that cared about the money. Not one. So, you know, we got to get that kind of spirit into this cannabis movement again. That it's not about money. It's about helping people. It's about doing what's right. It's about ensuring that everybody has the freedom to do what the hell they want with their own body.
Yeah. We have a law in New Zealand called the Misuse of Drugs Act, 1975. It is 5 years older than our Prime Minister. Our Prime Minister, who's leading us through these trying times that we're suffering around the world, and we in New Zealand are in lockdown just the same as so many other places. Our Prime Minister is 5 years younger than the law that locks me in jail. And I've done a lot of jail time.
Yeah, I bet you have. Marilyn and I have thankfully been not incarcerated for our activity in the United States. When we started Patients at a Time and our activities even before that, we relied on the First Amendment of our Constitution, which basically says you can say what you want in this country. And so we took that to Patients at a Time and we said, well, we'll say what we want. And not only that, we're not just saying it. We can prove it. And I had a beginning philosophy that I would lay on all of our faculty as they came into the conference. And I would tell them that since the get-go, nobody that ever made a presentation at our conference, their statements had ever been challenged by any individual, any organization, or any government in the world. And that's still true. So you can believe what you want to believe, but I believe these men and women, researchers, doctors, nurses, and especially the patients who came forward in a very, very dangerous time in our country to say, this has got to end. Now, you're exactly correct, of course. It hasn't ended, but they were right too. It should.
Yep.
We're getting there. It's going to be pretty sad when we have every state in the United States having a cannabis law and the federal government still saying no.
No valid use in the United States.
You would think they're going to wake up one of these days. You'd think they'd get
And look,
married.
I may be wrong, and I don't want to get involved in your politics, but the rest of the world is watching what's happening in your political world, in amongst all of this COVID news that's around. But my understanding is that Biden has said something along the lines of it's time to legalize. I get a sense, certainly Byrne was that way, and Bernie's now.
No, Biden is ready to.
So
control.
I would hope that if there's a change of president, a change of leadership in your country, that we will see that from our narrow perspective. What's happening with cannabis laws?
Biden himself is not the best on this. Biden himself is not. But if the Senate goes Democratic, then we have a chance on this MORE Act passing, which is a real good bill. But yes, it's complicated. We can.
I was impressed by the conversation that Biden and Sanders had the other day on Twitter. I watched it. And you know, they're buddies from way back, and they seem to be getting on. So I get hopeful when I see signs like that the political sense is, you know, starting to come right. But you know, I don't want to get involved in
Well, no,
whether or not
Dakta,
they're going to be elected or somebody else is.
I think you got it right, Dakta. You know, let me tell you something that you might not be able to see from over there, a little nuanced thing that I'm pretty excited about when it happens, and it might happen at the federal level. More than once now in the States, we've gotten to a point where, now, first of all, as background, the Republicans are often, even though there's a lot of great Republicans that are very strongly supportive of reform, vastly the Republican Party has been kind of against. And even though there's been a lot of hard, fast drug warriors in the Democrats have been mostly in favor of reform. But where it's gotten thin, where there's been an obvious tipping point, where there's a moment where it's really obvious that reform is about to take off, there's been a contest that's occurred kind of behind the scenes to see who could get reform done first. The Republicans trying to pass reform to mitigate their losses, and the Democrats, of course, finally seeing the opening to win. And all of a sudden you got the Democrats and the Republicans both vying to get something done at the same time. I could foresee something like that happening fairly soon at the federal level. I'm not so sure under Trump because we're so distracted by so many other things. It would take probably 30 seconds of focus on the marijuana issue to have that happen. But I think no matter who gets elected, we're getting very close to that point where the Republicans will see it as a thing that is going to be inevitable, therefore mitigate, rather than, oh, that's not going to happen, let's just stop it.
We have a similar opportunity here. We've been making public pronouncements over the last few weeks. It's harvest time right now. April is harvest time. The outdoor crops in New Zealand, it's harvest time. We've come to the end of summer. It's fall in your terms, autumn in ours. And we're in lockdown. And our friends, our members of our club, they're all in contact with us. Where can they find a bud? It's, you know, in this black market. And the fact is that there are some growers that have harvested that are sitting on substantial quantities, but they can't get it into the marketplace because no transport, you're not allowed out on the road, stay at home, all of that. So we're saying to the government, if you want to stop the bubbles being burst, you're not going to stop the bubble when somebody desperately needs their medicine. They're going to go out and they're going to break their bubble until they can find a black market bud somewhere. And if you would actually help us here during these trying times, let us deal with the cannabis and you focus on saving our lives. And you know, we've started that little campaign. We've got some Twitter things going on. We've got Facebook things going on. But we're a small country and we know our politicians a little bit more personally. Like Gary here, wearing that suit, is in our parliament every day that they're sitting. He sits in the public gallery. Our members of parliament will see him in the public gallery. They do see him. They acknowledge him. We had the leader of our opposition party a couple of years ago refer to him in her final speech of the year when everybody's going home for Christmas. She said, I want to pay for the dry cleaning for that man because he's been such a delight to see in our parliament. So, you know, we're out there and we're talking to our members of parliament, but they're still involved in this political fallout, which is the black market is evil, and you know we can't get a nice word in sideways.
To give you a little support, for instance, here in the United States, the state of Illinois and the state of Florida have declared that medical cannabis dispensaries are essential programs.
California too.
California too. So there
repeating
is an understanding here, you know, that this is medicine now. I mean, we're getting through here, and so you need to jam that up their ass down there and say, well,
exactly what we're doing. You're absolutely right. We see that, and remember, that we in New Zealand have had medical cannabis laws passed just recently, and the new law and the new regulations came into effect on April the 1st, just 20 days ago. Our new law came into being. But nobody's got any stock. Nobody has been able to gear up for production. So we've got all of these literally thousands of people around the country that cannot get access to the black market because they're in lockdown. They can't go find their dealer. The dealers, when they do find them, haven't got supplies because they can't get it from the grower. And so we've got this really serious problem in New Zealand where people are breaking our curfew, our lockdown rules in order to go out and find a bud. It should be delivered to everybody's home. Here it is in your letterbox, and it should be damn well compulsory. Then we'd have to fill out time.
To support
make
that
a government
as well.
program. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Canada now, if you're a military veteran and you're on the list to get therapeutic cannabis as a veteran, a Canadian veteran of the Army or the Navy or whatever, the cannabis is delivered to your home by either UPS or FedEx. Canada, the whole country.
Yep. Perfect. And that's exactly what we should be doing.
I think you can make a very interesting plea to your government, have a whole bunch of facets to it. Number one, you can list all the states in the USA and other territories that have declared cannabis as essential during this pandemic, and then back it up with the World Health Organization statement I was talking about last night, where the World Health Organization has now declared it a medicine, said that the debate over whether it's a medicine is over. You put those two things together, you bring it to them and you say, hey, we want a government program that delivers cannabis until we can get a program set up of medicinal access. You need to take the cannabis from where it is, buy it from the suppliers, legalize that so you can buy it from the suppliers and then distribute it in this crisis and have it delivered by mail. That'd be cool. Lennice and I were just talking about that before she came on, or I thought it was so surreal that we're all under house arrest now. So now we need to legalize the weed if they want to keep it,
Yep.
the right balance there.
Well, in New Zealand recently, Uber started a food delivery service. Uber to
go.
food or something. I can't remember what their term is. We need an Uber bud. Uber bud. Somebody needs to be out there as an essential service delivering the buds. Maybe not Uber, but you know what I mean. There is a need.
Show about a guy who delivers weed in New York City called High Society, I think it's called.
High Society was actually a treatment program.
Oh, really? Well,
I can't think of
so.
a better treatment program than having it delivered to the door.
I think this is on HBO.
Oh, that might be another one, but I remember it was High Society. It was some guy who was trying to do a cannabis treatment program for other addicts.
Well, this is about a guy who drives his bike around and delivers weed on his bicycle, and then he makes money, and it's and circumstances improve, and there's a second season of it, but it's just a HBO series.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
No, we'll look back at this one day. I think that the craziness is I've asked other people, I cannot think of another plant that is more versatile and beneficial than the cannabis plant. I mean, that's the craziness of this. We have made a plant illegal that's, one of the most beneficial, not just to human, health, medicine, but to the planet on the environmental issues, and we've made it illegal. The joke is, if we want to do that, why wouldn't we do something like poison ivy? Let's get rid of that plant. I don't know what it's good for, but this one is just so good for everything.
Really, you're right on, and that's what triggered me when I was reading, back around, I talked about this last night, 2007 or so, when I started reading the stuff from the World Health Organization on essential medicine list, and how this was a list of drugs that each country was mandated under the treaty to keep an adequate stockpile of for day-to-day use, emergencies, everything, stuff like penicillin, whatever. And if you read about it, that's exactly what you just said is exactly what they're looking for. That's the kind of substances, you know, when you got something that actually helps with some of the anti-anxiety issues. Anxiety, my God, right now, if that alone was in your toolkit for cannabis, it would make it well worth keeping in your toolkit for this pandemic, right? Anti-anxiety, oh my God. But you also have something that's really helped people keep the pill count down for pain. And that's something that, you know, we're struggling with to deal with, how to deal with pain without, you know, getting people, you know, so close to death because of opiates. And you know, dealing with fentanyl issues and everything else. I don't know, cannabis just seems not only versatile, but the right kind of versatile. You know what I mean?
I like the idea of poison ivy being made legal. All right. I think we could start such a campaign. And you know what? We're campaigners. We wouldn't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Scratch.
You know, there's deadly poison plants that grow on the side of the road, and they're perfectly legal.
There was a young person that would die, it seemed like every year or two, from gypsum. Actually, you know what occurs to me just now, I hadn't thought about this before, but what I just said, you know, that every year or so there would be a young person somewhere who would die from gypsum weed, loco weed. They, you know, eat it, smoke, whatever, just a common plant. They flower around the house. A lot of weed patches, you'd find these flower pods, and they're deadly. And I just realized that I have not seen a single story like that since we got marijuana legal anywhere. Since marijuana legalization became a thing, I cannot remember the last time I saw a kid trying to smoke freaking gypsum flower.
Some kids were drinking gas or sniffing gas.
Sniffing gas.
All kinds of awful stuff. And the whole spice thing. This all ends with legalization.
Yeah. But you know, the marijuana legalization inside the USA is a strange phenomenon, man. We, up until very recently, the United States were the police of the world for the drug control treaties. If you were a violator, identified so by the drug control treaty, you know, mechanism itself, the International Narcotics Control Board flagged you as a violator, then the USA was part of the mechanism coming after you, and you'd lose your most favored nation status, or you'd have some angry phone calls with 10 people from the US State Department and DEA on the line. It just really all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And all of a sudden, when marijuana was legalized in the very first states, our State Department went over to the UN. There's a fellow named Brownfield, and he got up before the UN and he started talking about flexibility. And he was talking about how, oh, this legalization in the US, in Uruguay, whatever, you shouldn't worry about it. It's well within the flexibility of the treaty. Well, I got to tell you, this is 53 countries that have been working on drugs for 50 years that had never heard the word flexibility used that way before. But that's where we are. We're in this new netherworld created by, you know, the magic wand of a good ambassador on the fly. And they actually named that, by the way. It's called the Brownfield Doctrine. If you want to look it up on Google, the Brownfield Doctrine on flexibility. It's hysterical.
Michael, I would like you to tell the folks, because I think I'm proud of this too, Patients at a Time. Years ago, you came to me and I guess a couple of dozen other individuals and organizations in drug reform in the United States, and you organized us into a consortium, a cabal that was able to affect the United Nations as I think we were some sort of drug war consultants or something like that. And I thought at the time that the groups that we had in the United States were together. But you know what I'm talking about? This story? You know what I'm talking about?
Vancouver.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to figure out which one, because there was the 2008. There's 2008, and then there was 1998.
Now, you called me one day and you said, Al, we want Patients at a Time to be...
That's 1998.
Okay, we want you guys to be consultants to the United Nations, and I'm calling all these other guys, and all these other guys are making statements about how they want to cooperate and how they want to do this and that.
Yeah, you showed the film. You sent the film into the UN.
Yeah, and you said, so what do you want Patients at a Time to say about its relationship
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
United States government.
Yeah,
said-
now I know where you're going.
You know,
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. All right, the United Nations is I call it a country club as a joke, but it is. It's a group of countries. It's not made up for non-government, not made up of non-governmental entities. It's governmental entities for, you know, kind of a back channel communication, make sure World War II never happened again, kind of thing. And that's the purpose of the UN. But we're there as guests, and we're invited guests because the United Nations recognizes that non-governmental entities, non-governmental organizations, you know, think like the Red Cross, for example, have their ear to the ground. They're the ones working with the people you know, in the local localities all around the globe, giving the services, meeting with the people, learning what needs to be done, and really having that top level from the ground up communications. So based on that, there's an application that you file to become accredited so that you can get a badge as a non-governmental entity to enter into the UN. And mostly they're concerned on the documentation to make sure that you're not just a front for some country, you know, a little entity that was created by a country just to serve the interests of that nation under the front of a non-governmental organization. So they want to know your relationship with the government that you live under. You know, are they paying your way? Are they, you know, funding you? And how did you word it? Our relationship with the federal government now?
Adversarial.
Adversarial.
Application. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that we have an adversarial relationship with the government.
Yep.
Right, adversarial. And I'm not sure that they've ever gotten such a document from anyone else. You know, there's 1,000 NGOs that have applied and are granted access to the UN. And I'm pretty sure none of them ever put that they had an adversarial relationship with their own government. It's so honest. I got such a chuckle out of that. It was really beautiful. So, but here, you know, a story jumps to mind. And I think you were there for this. Let us chime in if you were. Al and Mary Lynn weren't, but they sent to the UN in the big summit that came as a result of that application. We did participate in the next big thing, and that was the 1998 World Drug Summit. The last big drug summit that I know of that's ever happened was it 38 world leaders in the house from all over the globe, you know, talking about drug policy. We were there inside this UN facility with our tables and our displays. Lennice had a table, I had a table, Women's League, International Peace and Freedom, Drug Policy Foundation. But the Patients at a Time sent our film, the film about these patients, about Bob Randall and the other patients, their stories, a really great little award-winning film. And we showed it there at the UN. And there's this African delegation that came and watched this film. And for a while after the film, we were answering questions, and it took us a while to figure out what, you know, was really vexing the leader of this delegation. But we finally got it. He couldn't understanding our system of government, understanding that the United States was a representative democracy. He couldn't understand how we could be working on an issue and have 70 or 80% support and not be working with our government, actually be working against our government on that issue. It didn't make any sense to him because we're a representative democracy. And we had to, in that circumstance, explain to this high-ranking official from South Africa, you know, that we basically, you know, had a broken system in the United States. It's been broken for a while, and the representative democracy wasn't representing well. And in fact, now medical marijuana, I'm not even sure what the current data is, but it's close to 100%. It's like 90-something percent.
It's up there. Yeah.
People support medicinal access to cannabis. It's unbelievable that we still have places where we don't have medicinal access. Very few of them, but it's still unbelievable.
And you're right about not being represented when you say, I mean, people, anytime there's an initiative on cannabis, it gets a better rating than any of the politicians, you know, running for office. I mean, it's usually overwhelmingly positive, and they still ignore it. Back when Obama was in office, remember, you guys, he asked for people to, Michael or Lennice, you probably remember this better, but it was like, put in your concerns, the petitions, and put in the concerns. And the cannabis legalization was #1, and it's still, nobody paid attention to it. It was like the #1 concern that people were writing about.
Yeah, they just gave us, you know, boilerplate, you know, policy back, you know, about cannabis prohibition. It was worthless. we'd have done a lot of work to get all the number of signatures on these petitions that they wanted to see before they would actually answer the concern. And then they just gave us cheap ass boilerplate. It was really a waste. And that was Obama.
That's sad.
Yeah.
You're
But,
choking
you know,
president.
I will say this now, at the United Nations, what Mike isn't saying, yeah, in 98, we went in there and we did those information tables. But they came up with a resolution. Oh, Bill Clinton was there. It was huge. And they came up with this thing, how they were going to have a drug-free world in 10 years. And then in 2008, 10 years later, we went, and this had taken, there's a lot to tell about what happened that year. But we wound up going into the world meetings, and I was there with Mike, and absolutely stunning the world, just like we stunned that South African guy. It was absolutely blew their minds that the United States had a reform coalition. And we brought in a great big team that year, a really good team, a really sharp team. Deborah Small with the ACLU was there. That guy Grant, what was his last name? Oh my gosh, you know, Mike, I gotta fill in the name there.
And Graham Boyd.
Yeah. But all those people were just fabulous. And of course, there were others from around the world, but the United States had a big reform coalition there. And the people who were the prohibitionists who had been coming for years were sitting over there, and everybody looked at them like, we thought everybody agreed with you guys. And that kind of like it really burst their bubble. It was that started a big chain, a cascading change, which is now resulting in the United Nations actually moving away from the current position on cannabis. And when I say moving, that's glacial. That does not happen fast at the United Nations.
Especially, you consider that the current head of the United Nations is the man who implemented the decriminalization in Spain.
Right.
Sorry, no, Portugal.
Portugal was the,
My apologies.
yeah, that really changed things, because but they had done all the series of crackdowns, and every time they cracked down, the problem got worse.
Yeah.
And we're talking mainly, you know, hard drugs here. And they just decided they would decriminalize everything, and see, because they cracked down, they couldn't really see themselves doing it more, and it was expensive and ineffective. So they decided to go the other way and just decriminalized everything, and it worked like a charm, and the whole world took notice.
James Binkerhoff is in our waiting room. You know James Binkerhoff?
I don't, but it looks like someone wants to get in.
Irv Rosenfeld. I just realized that I had this ability to see that list. And Irv Rosenfeld was there, but I'm not sure, he's not popping up.
Is that Irv connecting? You know, I was going to tell a story earlier. Al, you were talking about the police and talking to the police. And I wanted to tell you a story that Irv told me. And that was that when he went into Richmond in 1979, and they got that medical marijuana law passed in Virginia that they did, that, you know, and Irv was sitting there, and he went up and testified, and he was really nervous. And when he went back to his seat, the guy that was sitting next to him was the superintendent of state police. And that guy tapped Irv and he said, "Do you know what you just did?" And Irv was freaking out, you know. And he said, "What? No, what?" He said, "You've just made it so no cop's going to bother you, period, and end of story. We would never touch you. Not after, you know, after you've come down here and testified." And
Let me tell you how that didn't work out.
Oh, okay.
Here's a story Irv told me. We were in our conference in 2010, 10 years ago, was in Providence, Rhode Island. It was beautiful there. So Irv came, did his thing, and he was one of the first to leave the conference area, catch a plane back to Florida here from Green Airport in Providence, Rhode Island. So we made sure that he got there in plenty of time to catch his flight. And gosh, he hadn't been gone a half an hour. And he called me and he said, Al, they busted me. And I said, who's they? And he says, the local airport police here, they found my legal federal cannabis and I'm busted. They want to arrest me and stuff. I said, well, are you worried? He says, nah, I got it covered. He had a friend in the DEA, still does probably. And anytime he got busted, he would call this guy up. It's a high-ranking DEA agent and tell him, hey, Bill, Tom, Frank, whatever his name was, they got me again. Okay, put him on the line.
Yeah, they had some cop hassling him down where he worked, near where he worked in Florida. I mean, he's had a lot of run-ins like that. But this was way before he had gotten himself. That was once he had all of his papers straight.
Oh,
What
yeah.
I'm talking about was before, when he was just another one of us, and they had nothing special to go on.
There's another airport story on Earth. You're right. After he got all his papers and all that stuff, he's in some airport. It's immaterial. So he's waiting in the line to get on a plane with everybody else. And a cop comes in and says, everybody put your carry-on baggage on the ground. We're going to run a drug dog through. And
I think they just let us
and we're going to sniff all the bags to see if anybody's carrying illegal drugs. So everybody puts the bag down. The cops run the dog through. He goes past Irv's stuff. He goes and he says, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, but have a nice day." And Irv says, "Hey, wait a minute. I got this pot here in my bag, and this dog didn't alert on it. What the hell's going on there?"
Like, what's the matter? Is your dog got a cold?
Yeah, what's happening to your dog? Anyway, Irv Rosenfeld's a kick.
All right.
He just joined us.
Hey, I'm telling stories about you.
Hey there. How are you?
Hi guys, I'm Sonia Gomez from Legalize It, Don't Criticize It and medicalsecrets.com. How y'all doing? Happy 420.
Happy 420.
Happy.
Sonia, nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Who do we have? Let me see all your wonderful faces. Hi Gary, nice to see you.
Got Mary
Hi,
Lynn
Dakta.
Mathre here.
I'm from New Zealand.
Michael
Hi.
Krawitz. We haven't met yet.
I'm Lennice Werth. We haven't met, I don't think.
I don't think we've met yet.
No. Where are
All
you?
right.
Where are you?
I'm in Denver, Colorado.
Okay. So.
Are you on Mountain Time?
Oh wait, I have a guest. We have a guest speaker.
I see a little one.
Oh.
Hello.
The next generation.
She's my
Hello.
guest podcaster. Here you
Are you in lockdown, Sonia?
We are in lockdown quarantine. Wes can poke your head in over here. And we have several children running about.
Yep. No, I think the world's in lockdown, or mostly in lockdown at the moment. We in New Zealand are in lockdown, so.
Yeah, that's been pretty significant. So catch me up, guys, on all of the festivities for 420.
Well,
We made it a good portion of the way around the world.
And actually, yeah, we just got on Irv Rosenfeld, who is one of the two remaining patients in the government's investigational new drug program, or the IND program, getting cannabis from the federal government. Hey, Irv, do you have one of your tins with you?
Oh, no, I don't. I should go get one. Maybe
We were
Debbie
talking about them earlier, yeah.
Hello, Michael.
Hi.
How are you, buddy?
Doing great, man. Yeah, we were just talking about the tins earlier. Mary Lynn and I were talking about a story where they had a bunch of the tins in the back and they came within 100 miles of the border and had to deal with a border checkpoint, but luckily had a truck full of dogs, so the dope dog didn't bother them.
Yeah, Debbie just went next door to get a tin can because I didn't bring it with me. And I'm actually at her house next door.
Irv, is there any way you can turn up your volume?
I'm not sure how to do that. Debbie just went next door
Oh,
to get a tin can.
click on your microphone and increase the volume on your microphone.
Yeah.
Pump the volume, pump up the volume.
You might need Debbie.
Probably needs Debbie.
I do need Debbie. She just went next door.
All right.
We understand. We're the same way. We need help.
We have help here. Our lady is named Jen. It's just different help. That's all.
But she'll be back in a minute or two. She just has to walk next door to get a tin can.
Yeah.
So while we wait for her, Sonia, can you tell us introduce yourself a little bit more? Tell us about you. Sonia?
No, Mum,
If you
he's
are,
doing
you got
mummy
your-
things.
You're
She's
muted.
on
Momming. I am momming and muted at the same time.
It's okay.
That's how it rolls. Yeah, I'd be happy to share. So, and for all of you guys who are tuning in, I'm not sure how many folks we have in what areas, but I'm super excited to see you all here. My name is Sonia Gomez. My husband and I have been in the cannabis and hemp industry for about 35 years between the two of us. He very much on the business side, me very much on the patient side. When I was 17 years old, I was in a near fatal surfing accident and working at the YMCA Camp Surf in Imperial Beach, California. There were lifeguards from all over the world, really good looking ones, if I don't say so myself. And I went out into the water. You Kiwis will know just what I mean when we talk about the affinity towards surfing. But I went out into the water and just got an ass whooping by the ocean. They totally, I got flipped over in my board, hit the ocean floor like a ton of bricks. And the very international, gorgeous Adonis lifeguards that I was showing off for ended up pulling me out of the ocean. And while I was doing my finger toe check on the beach, I noticed some tingling going into my fingers and in my toes. I wanted to just get up and get off the beach because I had thoroughly embarrassed myself choking on my own, on water and all of the rest of it from nearly drowning. And I got up, and what I thought was going to take just a couple of days ended up turning into this whole life-altering syndrome, which included, seizure type convulsions, sleep paralysis, neuropathy, cramping all over my body. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars, way too many months and years involved with the traditional medical system trying to figure out what was happening for me. And thank God my mom is a by any means necessary type of a person, because she just kept searching for answers that the traditional medical system couldn't and wouldn't give me as a minor, a 17-year-old girl in, the medical system. I went from being this healthy, vibrant, happy girl to over 100 pounds overweight and addicted to 7 different medications. So, when my mom finally found this holistic, neurologist, I was, kind of hopeless, kind of just waiting for my life to end. And the doctor said to me, if you're not sleeping, you can't heal, and recommended that I use cannabis. And so me and my mom hooked up and went down to the beach, and she rolled me up a big old beautiful joint of some purple kush, and we enjoyed a sunset on the beach, smoking a joint together. And for that night, I slept for the first time then, in years. And so did my mom. That was the first night that she didn't have to wake up to her baby screaming at the top of her lungs in pain. And that really switched me from festival going, teenage rebellious stoner to a public facing advocate. Since then, I have fought the legal system for my rights to safe access in California, earned myself an invitation to work in Colorado on legislative development, owned and operated one of the first licensed dispensaries in the world, and in the last 3 years have built an audience of over 1 million people who are cannabis activists, consumers, patients, professionals from all over the world. And we've published about 1,300 articles on my blog, the medicalsecrets.com. And most recently, I kicked off my podcast, The Hemp Revolution, where I'm sharing the real story of the cannabis and hemp industry from the eyes of the entrepreneurs who are pushing it forward. So I get the pleasure to connect with people like Casper and Martel and you know, so many other incredible people in the world and in the industry, and I get to share their story. We have about 25,000 listeners there, and we're reaching about 500,000 people a month. I think in the last 3 years, we've impacted 300 million people with our content. So I feel super proud of the work that we're doing and how we're supporting people getting access to the truth about cannabis and hemp and other natural remedies, and quite literally are moving the needle for legalization through the stories that we're able to tell. So I'm really excited about that. I myself have made a full recovery. I'm a mom of 4, a canna mom at that. I use cannabis and hemp regularly for my family's health and well-being. So I fully promote that you guys self-empower and self-educate. Don't take things at face value. Always ask the important questions, and know that the industry is full of bullshit. And by industry, I mean the medical industry. And you really have to take
Oh, it's society, Sonia.
and yeah, take responsibility for what you do and how you do it. And I promise that you'll be just fine. So that's a little bit about me. It was a long-winded story, but I wanted to get to know you guys and let you know a little bit about who I am. And I'm actually going to share this over to my Facebook page, and I have a couple of really great guests who wanted to join in with us as well. The founder.
Where are you at right now?
I am in Colorado.
Okay, so we're coming up in like 9 minutes. We'll be coming up on like Illinois, Minnesota. You got anybody coming in from that time zone?
Nobody from that time zone. I have Kyle Turley, who was just recently featured on
You're getting your heart
We're all
monitored.
checking our devices.
Oh, that's scary, guys. Come on.
My heart pacemaker. Oh my golly gosh.
I'm getting scared.
You're gonna turn on the device in my brain that they left in there.
Listen, Mike,
Hello.
I think it's Irvin.
if
Yeah,
she's
Irv,
got some other
pull the
people
plug, Irv.
and it's getting crowded, I'm going to cut out. If this has been the best. At Marilyn and Al, I'm going to see you guys soon.
And I'll be right back as well. I'm going to just go grab my little accoutrement for the session.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're 8 minutes away.
Okay. Do you want me to stay for the 8 minutes, Mike, or you want me to?
You got to stay for the 420.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got
I'll
to
stay.
stay for the 420.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's the purpose of what we're doing this for.
Well, that's right. You got a good point there. Well, I didn't know you could get more than one.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah, we're doing 24, aren't we?
We're doing them, 24 of them.
It's really, Irv, you're having some difficulty there, Irv. I'm not sure. You plugged in, it's making a lot of noise, but we're not hearing your words.
We're hearing some beeping, and we think it's coming from you, Irv. Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Can you do it without the headphones? Unplug them?
Evan, you got to turn your microphone on. Try pressing
down in the left corner.
Use your space bar.
There you
Oh,
go.
there you go. It's
There
on. You're right. We're there.
Debbie's there. Hi, Debbie.
Is it good? Okay. We got
We
it.
can-
On now, Evan.
We can hear you now.
Okay, good. Okay, well, it's a pleasure to be on this call because we've all come a long way and we've all been fighting a long time. I mean, I discovered medical marijuana in 1971. Now, you all know 1971, and a lot of people out there may not remember 1971, but I knew it. And I started taking on the federal government in 1973, United States federal government. And I was fortunate enough to win with Bob Randall and Alice's help in 1982.
Something cooking.
Since 1982, the federal government's been supplying me 10 marijuana cigarettes per day. And Bob and I were able to educate the entire world about the benefits of medical cannabis. And here we are, decades and decades later, having this discussion. And while Bob's not here, he's with us. He would know. And I feel very proud about what we've accomplished with everybody's help worldwide. And now we're finally on the upswing, but we're still not there yet. We still have a lot to do, but this is a good thing that we're doing.
Hey, Irv, what do you think? Just a little while ago, we were talking about how in some of the states where you have medical marijuana access, legal marijuana access, the governor has listed the medicinal, at least the medicinal access to cannabis as an essential item to be kept open and accessible during this emergency. Isn't that's to me and others, it seems like a milestone of some sort.
It is completely. Okay, we've come so far. We've come so far in the last 40 years. It's amazing. But the point is, we all thought 40 years ago it was going to take 5 years to get to where we are today. It's taken 40 years, and we're still not there yet. But we are getting there. So hopefully, our federal government will do something about, legalizing the use of medical cannabis. Not only for medical use, but social use. But what they don't understand is all social use is medical use. That's what they don't understand. We all need it. And, talking about the coronavirus, I'm next door at my neighbor's because my computer wouldn't work. I didn't have enough bandwidth, whatever it is. I don't know. But the point is that here we are together and, we're trying to stop a coronavirus, all the spreading that we've done. And the whole idea is that we told people years and years and years ago that this was a needed medicine for us. And, with the coronavirus, I mentioned that my immune system is much better than most other people because I use marijuana and have for 45 years, 50 years. And my wife, Debbie, mentioned, well, that's great. So you won't catch it, but you can still be a carrier of this. And I went, you're right. Marijuana is not going to stop the carrier of being being a patient. So therefore, we could be exposed to the coronavirus and not realize it because we're not sick, but we still could be a carrier of it. So the whole point is that, cannabis has done remarkable things for all of us. All of us on this meeting, we're still alive, we've done well, and we're still expounding the benefits of medical cannabis. But we're not there yet. We're getting closer. But until the federal government legalizes it for everybody to where we don't have to worry about medical use or whatever, because all use is medical. Until that happens, we still have a fight. And so people are out of jail, we still have a fight. And so people understand, the medical society understands where we're coming from. All of us are still in the fight. We've done a great job. And so it's great that y'all are doing this today.
Hey, when Dennis Perone was talking to the media back in '96, I remember he said something along the lines of, with little children being prescribed Prozac and amphetamine-like drugs for ADD, we should look at the use of all marijuana as medical. And he was basically quoted out of context, and they put on the front page, Dennis Perone says all marijuana use is medical. And he got a lot of blowback for that. Do you think today, with the addition of CBD products and basically having almost full coverage, you can access either you can access a cannabis product, the whole cannabis product now, no matter where you are, I think almost anywhere on planet Earth, and everyone is using it to some extent, getting a chill, using CBD when there's no incentive of a high. I don't know, maybe that calculus is changing now. Maybe you can get by with that. All use is medical better than then. I don't know. Where's your head on that?
Dennis was right years ago. But the problem is what we need is full spectrum cannabis, meaning all the different cannabinoids work together. And that's what we've learned. And the problem is the doctors don't understand that yet. They're still starting to teach that in medical schools, but it's still so new. And so therefore we can't, blame it on them because they don't know the difference. But the point is all use is medical. We've learned that through our endocannabinoid system in our bodies. We've learned that, but that's over the last 30 years. And the sad
100%.
part is they're still not teaching in medical schools that much. I mean, very few medical schools are teaching that. So the patients, us, are the ones that are trying to educate the doctors. And
1
that's what
minute
we're doing.
countdown.
That's what we're doing.
We're on a 1 minute countdown, Evan. Sorry to interrupt you, but this whole project is about sharing the 420 every time
Fair
zone
enough.
as we travel, and we're about to do that.
And Irv can share with a federal government cannabis
Right.
joint.
Light up one of those shitty doobies, Irv.
Well, here's the tin can. Here's
All
the
right.
tin can.
Higher,
And
higher.
the problem is I'm not at home. I'm at my neighbor's house.
Oh,
I cannot light up a joint in her house.
Well, You can hold one up in
Can.
hold it up in solidarity.
Put the canister up again, Irv.
Show the can.
And I'm on bail, so I can't share it
Oh.
publicly.
Oh, no.
So
We'll have to take an
you
extra
and
hit
I
for you.
will watch these other guys have a little puff.
Fair enough.
Here we go.
And-
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's
Oh,
420.
20!
Happy 420, Illinois, Minnesota.
Irv, put the canister up again. Nope, we couldn't see it. It was a little too low for the camera. Hold
Way
it up.
up. Put it in front of
Oh,
your
that
face.
looks so good.
There you go.
Those are-
There you go.
Those are
300 joints pre-rolled in the University of North Carolina with some of the shittiest swag you ever smoked in your life.
It's adequate. It
Government
worked.
weed. Government weed.
There's a nice ring to that, isn't there? Government
Look,
weed.
I'm thankful to have it the last 38 years. It's kept me alive. And that's how Bob Randall and I want to teach the entire world. And that's what we've done. So thank you.
Urban, I first met you in that documentary that you were part of. Not physically. You were in a documentary.
I've done a bunch of them. Okay.
Bullshit. It was
Many years ago. And was the first that I, on the other side of the world, had heard about the federal program in the US. It's just one of those added pieces of information that just make the whole prohibition a mockery of common sense and decency.
Well, it does. I mean, I've been getting it for almost over 39 years now. So 39 years. Think what you were doing 39 years ago when I took on the United States federal government 49 years ago. It took me 10 years to educate the federal government until I won. So think back 49, 50 years ago. Where was this issue? It was Bob Randall and it was me. And Bob's not here to speak for himself. So I need to speak for both of us. And that's how important it is.
We agree. It's an amazing thing to get caught up in such a big timeline, such a big human story. But cannabis was driven out of traditional use. And Sonia said traditional medicine before. What she really meant was contemporary or conventional medicine, because traditional medicine is what we're talking about, which goes back thousands of years and is ascribed in great medical texts in history about how cannabis was used from trial and error and great experimentation through our societies over time. And that's a great bit of knowledge. Our traditional use history, really something we're just beginning to tap into. But I think it's important to recognize we are of a huge timeline. Cannabis was well recognized as a medicine, traditional medicine, and then modern contemporary, conventional medicine with a lot of injectable drugs, a lot of kind of pharmaceutical bent and all that came in and supplanted it. And we came in without realizing it, I think, any of us, how we fit into this big picture of bringing this back, of fighting for the plant, for the people, for the indigenous use, the traditional use, our complementary use of cannabis that's connected to thousands of years of history and is very important. And it's just amazing how it can come down to one person, like Bob Randall, a pinch point in history, and then, expand out to, what was it at the top, 30 or 40 patients? I forget.
No, the most we ever had, Michael, was 13 patients that were we had 28 patients that were approved for medical use. Only 13 patients received their medicine. The other 15 never did. They were told to use Marinol. And so there were 13 of us, were the most patients ever in the United States that received the actual smoking form. And so, the sad part is today there are two of us left. There's Elvie and there's me. So that's it in the United States, two of us. So,
And that actually, that was the reason Patients Out of Time was formed. It was in 90 when we had, the first 5 patients together. By 92, the federal government shut the program down. And when they shut it down, it was just those patients, and they told the ones The other ones, yeah, sorry, program's closed. And there were hundreds of applications from HIV patients waiting to be heard, but they just, you know, threw them in the trash or whatever. They didn't care. But by 1995, there were only 7 of those patients left alive, eight of the patients left alive. And, you know, Al and I looked at each other and it was like, they're just going to try to kill these people off so that they don't have to admit that they're giving cannabis to patients, at the same time saying it's a forbidden drug with no medical use. And we thought, you know, we need to just go public with this and make sure people understand that, you know, there is science behind cannabis and it is medicine.
And these are patients out of time. We're not kidding here. I mean, you know, Mary Lynn and I have been doing this our whole damn life, I think. But the point is, while we've been doing this, while Irv's been doing this, while hundreds of us have been doing this all over the world, people are just dying that don't have to die. I mean, this is no joke. I've talked, you know, over the show three different times that military veterans in the United States, let alone other places, we don't even talk about the other places, but in this country, at least the VA says it's 22 suicides a day by military personnel. I say it's 80. My figure's as good as theirs. But again, we're talking about that this is over and over and over again. And these folks that are on this program, all of them, have seen this as one of the dumbest damn things. We just don't know how to deal with it anymore. It's so stupid.
And if people haven't figured it out, I mean, patients out of time, we really are saying that they're out of time. We don't need more research. We know how safe cannabis is, so we don't need research for that. But some people haven't figured out, though. We always state our name, but if you notice, the acronym is POT for patients out of time. And that was Bob Randall who reminded us too, to keep saying the name, which is appropriate. We just want to drill that in. Patients are suffering. They need it now. You know.
But what Bob used to say is when somebody says more research, what they're saying is more prohibition.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an excuse. Right. And I think, again, what we try to say is the research is clear that it's safe, but every patient we know wants more research. We want to know what's going to work best for each of us for different conditions, et cetera. So nobody's against the research, but you're right. Yeah, that's been the delay. Oh, we need more research. You can't do more research, but we need more research.
But there's tons of research.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, so much of it is outside the U.S. and is, we had doctors.
At this point, some of it isn't. And also, what's wrong with the foreign research? You do less, you know, you got, everybody's got Paul Armentano has a great talk on this, but we've done more research on cannabis than we have on Adderall or
and any other
any of these
pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
I've been researching it for 30 years.
Yeah, they've never done double-blind placebo-controlled studies on aspirin.
Well, let me tell you another.
It was grandfathered in.
Let me tell you another story that Mike Krawitz taught me. So there's this product out there called Marinol, right? Now Marinol is in a capsule, so it's a pill, so it's cool. And this pill is full of sesame oil and THC, nothing else. THC, this horrible compound in cannabis. So when Marinol got approved, by the way, even though it has THC in it, as medicine, you see this doesn't make sense? Trust me, it'll get worse. So they approved this THC, which is in Schedule 1, but it's okay now because it's in a capsule with sesame seed oil. So they put it in 2, which means that it can be prescribed.
But it's highly addictive.
Yeah, you got to watch this stuff, man. It's in 2. So then time went on, and then along comes a schedule change for this Marinol product, total THC in a sesame oil coat, from 2 to 3. 3. What's 3 mean?
3 is just less addictive.
Less addictive. So here's the point. We have the terrible THC is a legal drug called Marinol. It's in Schedule 3. Not only that, as Mike informed me, this is the only drug, by the way, in the whole history of scheduling that has ever been reduced. Ever.
And that's just to clarify for people, because in different countries, you have different schedules. Sometimes the lower schedule means the lower the risk. In the United States, it's the opposite. Schedule
course.
1 means it has no medical value. And we have a schedule system that just goes down to Schedule 5. And that's with little abuse potential. Stuff like Lamodal, a little codeine in there to help with diarrhea, or stuff like that. The benzodiazepines are in Schedule 4. You know, as an addictions nurse, that's highly addictive to me, but they're down in Schedule 4, low rated.
Epidiolex was just put in Schedule 5.
Actually, it was put in Schedule 5 and it actually got taken out completely. So now, yeah. And Epidiolex is the GW product that of high CBD for seizure patients.
But anyway, I think the audience can see the absolute hypocrisy of what we're all talking about. It's so Irv, how long do you think you would have made it without cannabis? You'd be long gone, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd be long gone. I wouldn't be alive today without it.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, it's really, it's saved my life, and I've been a very productive member of society. Again, I've been a stockbroker for 34 years, handling millions and millions of dollars on a daily basis. All my clients know that I use 10 medical cannabis cigarettes per day, prescribed, not recommended, prescribed by the United States federal government. And so I'm very fortunate to have this prescription. And so that's why I've always tried to help other patients, because, you know, if it wasn't for the grace of God, there go I, and I would not be alive today.
You know, it's a point I'd like to point out here is that, first of all, Bob Randall, we've talked about Bob a lot, but his partner in life, his wife, Alice O'Leary, needs to be recognized. This woman continues to be, she's an LPN, I think now, but she continues to be active all these years later in the cannabis issue. And she certainly was instrumental in helping Bob, or being a co-author with Bob, of a lot of things that we don't want to go into here. You know what I'm talking about, Palm.
Well, the point is, I can point out that, you know, it was Bob was the public figure, Alice was behind him, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So the two of them did what they did, and they've furthered this whole case with me and everybody else, you know, worldwide. Without Bob and without Alice, we wouldn't be here today, most likely.
That's true. And then I'd like to add on to that, without Irv and Elvie and George and Barbara and Corinne, we wouldn't be here either. You guys, you got to understand now, this was 1995. Reagan was raging his stuff. Nancy Reagan, everybody.
Just say no.
Just say no. I mean, it was like, wow, this is crazy shit going on. And these people now, these 5 guys I just mentioned, were getting their cannabis, check this out, they're getting their cannabis medicine from the federal government and challenging the federal government to give it to everybody else. If that isn't balls, I don't know what the hell is. So these folks are heroes.
And the reason we say, you know, when you go back in time, and I clearly you know it, Irv, that it wasn't time. Nobody could say anything about using cannabis, and the DEA did threaten. I don't know if you specifically, but I know they threatened patients who were in there. Certainly Kenny Jenks, who went to, he's a, I'm going blank with Kenny's problem.
Kenny and Barbara were age patients.
Hemophilia.
Hemophilia. I don't know why I went blank on that.
Anyway.
Right. And he got a lot of blood products, got HIV positive, infected his wife. And he went around to different HIV AIDS meetings to tell people about cannabis. And the DEA literally came up to him and said, you don't want to say that. We might take this medicine away from you. And he was kind of like, I'm dying anyway. What are you going to do to me? And he kept fighting. But yeah, it was a rough time back then for patients to be open about it.
Well, no, it even got better, right? Because the judge in that case with Kenny was confronted with the situation.
Yeah, the judge was good.
The judge was terrific because I can't quote the guy, but he said he heard the case and he looked at the Jenks and he said, I don't know if he called him guilty, but he said,
by law, they were guilty, but he didn't see the crime. So he sentenced them to community service, and it was to help each other. He was to help his wife and she was to help him.
Right. To tell you what he did is he fined each of them $1 and then gave them 500 hours of community service taking care of each other.
Yep.
And Barbara and Kenny did not like that because they were still considered a criminal.
Right.
They appealed it, and the appellate courts in Florida ruled against the judge, saying that they were not breaking the law under medical necessity defense. So they took the crime away from them, and they were no longer guilty. And Barbara and Kennedy were dear friends of mine. And I remember when that happened, I called them, and I said, you know, I can talk to y'all again because you're no longer criminals. And of course they laughed, you know. And the sad part was that, of course, they both died because of AIDS, from hemophilia. That's where he got it from, meaning tainted blood. What did he do wrong? And that's what Bob Randall pointed out to me. Because back in the late 80s, and we came across with medical, you know, marijuana for, you know, AIDS patients, I was the first one to say to Bob, do we really want to do this? We have enough people against us. Do we really want to take on the AIDS project and have people go against us with that too? But Bob was right. And today, thank God he was right.
Yep.
Here we are.
Hey guys, we're coming up in this next hour. We're coming up on Colorado's 420. Also, Regina, I guess it is.
You've been there.
Up in Canada.
Oh, in Canada?
You've been there.
Yeah.
So we picked someone up for the conversation. Say
Regina.
hello.
It's Regina. It rhymes with
I know, I kept saying Regina, and I was up there, and they said
Catskills.
Regina. Oh, I didn't know that.
It rhymes with Mary. No confusion.
All right. Well, y'all take care. I'm going to sign off.
Thanks,
Peace,
Irv.
brother.
take care.
Thanks for
Thank you very
sitting
much
in with
for
us on
being-
this 420.
Y'all have done a good thing. Keep it up.
Thank you very
I
much.
love you.
Thank you
Much
for being
love.
with us.
Bye-bye. Wait.
So
I'm
I
gonna
gave,
bow out now because I've got a few things to do, but this has been awesome.
have a good one, Lennice.
Been
Yeah.
a pleasure to meet with you, Lennice.
Yes, yes. And well, listen, you know, we're all behind you guys in New Zealand, and I know how it is to be in an outpost where it looks like nothing's going to happen, but it will.
Okay.
It will. Just keep with the good fight.
Okay. I'll just show you something before you go.
What?
Just show you something. Here we go. I'll just show you this. This is our club rooms.
Oh,
Nice.
wow, that's awesome.
That's our club rooms in Wellington and New Zealand. It's
Well,
empty
oh,
at the
man.
moment. But you see
Oh.
that window right at the top on the left?
Uh-huh.
I'm just through there. I'm waving at you at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Hey, that's us. So thank you.
Okay,
you
well,
for
thank
being with
you.
And thank you for your support.
Oh, yeah. Always.
I want to see us doing more of this. I think all the people that have been on throughout this whole 24 hours, we should have a gathering in a week or two.
Okay,
Just
I'm
for us,
in.
not for broadcasting, but just for us, so that we can actually gather together. I think this is fabulous. To be
Okay,
able to
great.
meet so many.
I'm in. All
Names.
right, you guys. Well, happy 420.
Yeah, thank
Easy.
you. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
visiting with us, Lennice.
Bye-bye. Or 2020.
For 2020.
Yep.
Too awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, we're coming into I guess that's Mountain Time Zone, isn't it? Mountain.
Let me tell the Jack Hurst story. This is about hemp and all the other things. Well, Jack and I were not best friends, but we talked a lot, mostly by phone. I think our connection was that he knew I was a Navy vet. I knew he was an Army vet. And there's some things that only veterans can talk about. And so we would talk about those things with each other. But one day, surprisingly enough, the phone rang. It's Jack. And he's waiting around. And I think it was Boston. He was in Boston airport and he was bored. And he called me in Virginia and I was home. So we got talking. And he was coming back from Europe or something. And he wasn't feeling good because I think he had gallbladder problems or something. And he was
I
eating
think it was his
cheese.
gallbladder,
something.
cholecystitis.
Anyway, we got on to telling stories. He had been in, I believe this story centers around the United Kingdom. He had gone in to talk hemp. He had been well received. A guy in the audience was a farmer, heard Jack's talk about hemp, and invited him out to the farm for lunch and a tour around the farm the next day or something. So Jack went out there. He had lunch. The guy says, all right, let's get down to my fish pond. And so we walked down to the fish pond, and the guy had a bag. I don't know where this come from, but he had a bag full of marijuana seeds, hemp seeds. And he said, watch this. So he takes a handful of these seeds, and everybody knows what broadcast means, how you broadcast seeds. He broadcasted these seeds, the farmer did, in his fish pond. And Jack was just standing there. He says, Al, I never saw anything like it in my life. He said, every seed that guy threw out that disappeared in 5 seconds. They were gone. He said, every fish in the pond come up to get those seeds. And he said, the guy just throwing them in, and the fish kept going up, and on and on and on. So I want to attribute this story to Jack Herr. It's not mine, but all the fishermen in the world out there need to know what we all know, and what the fish know, is that the hemp seed is one of the most nutritious seeds on the face of the earth. And the fish know it, and the United States government and the New Zealand government do not. It's incredible.
That makes a lot of sense now that you say that, Al. I'll be able to use that when I appear before the judge. Your Honor, the reason that I was high, I had fish and chips for dinner.
It was the fish I ate.
Well,
Well, you know, we're getting plastic when we're eating the fish. So, I mean, I'd much rather get a little hemp seed when I eat the fish.
Makes sense.
So
What?
who else? We've got, who else do we have here online?
new people.
We have
Hi.
iPhone.
There.
Here we go.
Hello, iPhone. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah.
iPhone. It must be me. I'm Sierra Neblina. I am so happy to be on here with all of you. I am a Army veteran and a cultivar, and I have been growing both cannabis and hemp for many years and have been using the medicine to help others. I was a cultivator of cannabis in Colorado since it became legally medical, since it went medical in 2002. Started working my best friend's garden with her. And then 2007, from complications of Desert Storm Syndrome, I had a massive stroke and my heart stopped. Woke up with 28% of my brain damaged, and I was bilaterally stroking, left side complete paralysis, and it affected the cortex of speech. And they came in and said, you have so much damage. We don't know why you started stroking at 35. This is ridiculous. We don't know what's going on and why your heart stopped. And, you know, this is before the whole Desert Storm thing really kind of came out. And they said, you'll never walk or talk again. And I said, oh, this is the second time I've been told I'd never walk again. I broke my lower back when I was playing basketball. I was an Olympian. And anyhow, alternative healings. So cannabis is the thing that ultimately healed me in the beginning. 1 year to the day after having 28% of my brain scar tissue, there was 0 scar tissue from using cannabis. I dove into the science of it. And so I've become a huge advocate of the hemp plant and certain strains of the hemp plant because of the wide spectrum, the cannabinoid profile. And so I'm a huge advocate for now full spectrum CBD with THC, enough THC in there to activate the CBD. But I wouldn't be walking or talking or doing anything that I'm saying right now without it. And I've put my butt on the line for years by providing this medicine to people who have been sent home to die from Western medicine. So that is Sierra Neblina is who I am, and I'm in Colorado, and I'm a consultant, and I work with people growing their own private little gardens if they're trying to grow their own medicine, all the way up to giant corporations setting up grow operations and so on. So hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Sabrina, this is Al Byrne. You are 3 for 3. You're a veteran, you're an athlete, and I would like you to invite you to speak on Mike Krawitz, who's on here, is the host really, and my radio program, Veterans Voices. We'll contact you sometime.
I would love to.
Good. We're always interested in veterans that have used cannabis to overcome the symptoms that you've described. Then I'm going to talk about the other organization that I've talked about here. It's called Athletes for Care. It is an organization of professional, Olympic, and NCAA athletes who think that cannabis should be allowed as part of their therapeutic program They're not
Yes.
advocating for like it's a great thing to, you know, smoke pot and go ride a bicycle, but they are saying that from their perspective, the healing of the plant is essential to their life. So I'd like you to invite you and others like you to that organization. It's called Athletes for Care. And then Mike and I'll get a hold of you to get your military background and the terrible things that have happened to your body. So you're active cannabis user at the present time?
Yes, active cannabis user at the present time. What I utilize it for now is PTSD and working my way in and out of PTSD triggers and so on. And I was doing really well. Actually hadn't had a really bad PTSD trigger since my 20s when I got out of the war. Was just the political climate in the last little bit and leading all up to this whole virus thing. I just, in 2019, the entire 2019, I just was in a constant complex PTSD reaction mode. And I was also up in Oregon, which didn't really help. And I'm finally back home to Colorado. It's really helped me in a lot of different ways, especially the sun shining. And I'm just not one of those that can tolerate not being in the sunshine. And you had mentioned about the athlete thing. 9 years to the day that I had the stroke in Breckenridge, Colorado, because I'm also a retired multi-million-dollar spec home and custom home builder in Vail, Aspen, Summit County, Colorado, and the stroke ended my career. At that point, it took me a year to rehabilitate, learn how to walk and talk again, but I did. And then I started speaking to people about their health and well-being. I'm a motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, from all the stuff from the military and everything else. But the athlete part, I really love to talk to you about, because I've worked with several hemp companies developing different lines and recuperation. And I think it's an atrocity that athletes aren't allowed, especially professional and Olympic athletes, to use any form of hemp cannabis product. To the rehabilitation factor is enormous. I run Spartan races now. That's what I do for fun. And I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I just wouldn't. A year to the day, I ran the hardest Spartan race called the Beast. And I did it in Breckenridge, Colorado, and all the professional Spartan racers come and run that one because it's the hardest one. I did it in 6 hours, but I completed it and only missed 3 obstacles out of 37. And I was pretty freaking excited. And then I got sponsored as a professional Spartan racer, and then fell at the end of 2016 and injured myself. I'm retraining to get back into races again, but it's essential to be able to utilize these products, and you have such a quicker recovery rate when doing so.
You know, the shame of it is the government has, you know, the patent on cannabis as a neuroprotectant and antioxidant. So there you go with your stroke. I mean, they know it's got potential. Were you a cannabis user prior to the stroke, or what got you to know to use that?
My best friend, I'd mentioned in 2002, I started working in my best friend's garden. She lived in Beulah, Colorado. She died of heart attack, unfortunately, in 2016. That was a bad year for me. But I started working her garden. I would come and see her all the time, spend my time off, and I absolutely enjoyed working the garden, but would not take cannabis because I was an entrepreneur, a woman running a multi-million-dollar custom spec home. I was raised very conservative in a Southern Baptist family. I was religious. I was an athlete. You don't put that in your mouth because of all of the stuff that they told us. You know, it's, you know, the craze, you know, the reefer madness and everything like that. And I had a real fear of becoming a stupid stoner if I participated in it all. And I started to have a digression of medical events that ramped up to the stroke. I had an emergency hysterectomy. I had an emergency gallbladder surgery, and I became so ill and so overtoxified by medical drugs and believing them and taking whatever they put in front of me, because I was sure they should know best, right? They're doctors. And took all of these things, including hormone replacement, Yasmin, that is the thing that caused the stroke and stopped my heart. I mean, just on and on and on with this medical incompetence from the Western medicine. And so right before my stroke and in between all of these other surgeries, I couldn't walk. I had lost 30 pounds after a botched gallbladder surgery. I had to walk had to use a cane or used a wheelchair. I was sick. I couldn't keep food down. I was wasting away. And my best friend's husband came up to me and said, "That's enough, Sierra. You have tried everything else. You have done everything else. It is time you give cannabis a try." And I just broke down and cried. I said, "I don't want to be a stupid stoner. I don't want to lose my capacities. I've just regained all my capacities again." And he said, "Give it a try." And I walked into a dispensary, got my medical card, walked into a dispensary, and the owner came out when he saw me walk in because of how sick I was. And he said, "I want you to smoke this." And I looked at him, I said, "That looks like a pipe, a crack pipe, man." And I was I was a sheriff. I was, way on the other side of all, no, get away from me. What is wrong with, I had all different type of reactions towards this because of the preconceived and all this time and energy put towards demonizing the plant. And so I took one hit and a migraine because I was ramping up to the stroke, because it's literally a month before I had my stroke, I got my medical card. And at the very last minute, and I was in when I had my stroke, I was up in Summit County, and because I had been stroking for 4 hours, they didn't fly me by helicopter. They took me by ambulance to St. Anthony Central in Denver. And it was this, Catholic hospital and stuff like that. And I kept refusing painkiller because it kept throwing my body into convulsions because I was so overtoxified by the poison they were giving me, that the ER doctor, the head of the intensive care unit, came in and said, "I heard you keep declining painkiller." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm all hooked up to the tubes and I can't really talk. I talk and the wrong things come out. So I'm writing on a little erase board." And he goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I went, "With my medical card." He goes, "I can't let you light up," because this is back in 2007. It's not, we didn't have a lot of the you didn't have a lot of the science and technology behind all the awesome things you can do with the cannabis plant now. You can even take all the THC out of it if you want to, And so I was like, "I don't know what to tell you." And I was the exception because I was a huge fall risk after that stroke before I had heart surgery 3 weeks later. They let me leave the floor with an exception to go down and be wheeled around the Stations of the Cross and smoke my little cannabis. As soon as I got home, because I was always a proponent for eating it. I've always been more of I want to eat it. I want to put it in my body. I want to, of course, smoking it and have fun now that I trust it. Now I've gone through the different strains, and I'm very strain specific, and I'm very, very, I want to know about the strains. I want to know about the genetics. I want to know about the history of it. I've researched all the pioneers in this thing. And so, yeah, I started off smoking it, but I wanna eat it more than I do smoke it. But most recently, because of the bad PTSD triggers I've been going through, smoking and the immediacy of smoking is I've needed to do. So I've gone in and out at different times in my life, whether I'm more smoking it or more edible. But I take RSO every single night, every night.
How do you sleep?
Huh?
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking
He just
to
woke up. That's why he's wondering.
Get
Martel's
out of
joining us.
the way. I'm talking to a beautiful lady. I don't even look at you. So, Sabrina, how do you sleep at night? Sure. I'm sorry. How do you sleep?
I used to take a heavy concentration of Phoenix tears. It's before I started growing my own organic hemp. And there is a producer here in Colorado who has been working on his own USDA organically certified hemp strains. And he's got like 20 the guy's got ridiculous amount of different cannabinoid profiles in one hemp plant. He's taken millions of dollars to develop these organic hemp strains. And I grew those out, and I've been working on the medicine of that. What was your question? It just went, woo.
It's okay. It's all right. It's almost 4:20 and we'll all be where you are. But
yeah.
My question was about sleep.
Sleeping.
When I started out, you use cannabis every evening.
Yeah, I used to use Phoenix tears, which is a cooked down version of just one, highly concentrated THC is basically what it is from a cannabis plant. But now I've switched over to full spectrum RSO, and where it has been cooked or prepared in a particular way to release the THC to activate all the cannabinoid profiles. So every single night to sleep, I use melatonin, 5 milligrams, and I use a full dollop, like a pea-sized dollop of full spectrum RSO oil. And yeah, that's what I do. Try to get off the tablets or off the phone an hour or so before I go to bed, the whole thing. But yeah, that's what I do to sleep, and I have to.
Do you get 8 hours of sleep?
I try to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night.
Good for you. Good
yeah.
for you.
The only time I don't do that is on really powerful full moons. The energy really messes with me.
So,
but other than that,
but we're going to do this on the radio, me and you, another time with Mike. But
awesome.
I'm really interested in veterans because most of us have sleep problems. As
yes.
you indicated, you did. I certainly did. Not anymore because I, like you, use cannabis every evening before I go to bed.
Yes.
Last thing I do.
Yep.
You saw a noticeable difference. I know, obviously, you're going to say yes, Al. You didn't use cannabis, you didn't sleep well. You use cannabis, you do sleep well. Is it that simple?
Let me tell you, it is that simple as far as sleeping goes, and it goes even further for me because of the extent of all the different damage I had in my body, and it's continuing to heal my body, and I can see that, I can feel that, but the impact on my experience on life is dramatically different. I mean, whether it's I'm taking CBD with no THC in it just to help my, the inflammation or the swelling, because I still, deal with, injury and stuff and beating up my body, being an Olympian all my life and then a soldier and then, just because I love to be active and be outside and do all these crazy things. Obstacle course racing. I'm damn near 50 years old this year, and I love to go swinging and propelling myself and off the most ridiculous stuff. I will do it until I can no longer do it. But there's a toll on the body, and in its many forms, cannabis has saved my life. Saved my life.
Yeah.
Beautiful story.
Cannabis access.
Beautiful story.
Thank you.
Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access, of which Al and I are founders and leaders, is very proud to have worked on adding post-traumatic stress as a qualifying condition in Oregon and in Colorado. And Colorado, I'm not sure if you're aware of how much of a fight that was. It was the biggest fight we had in any of the states. It was a fight that we had in Colorado to add post-traumatic stress as a qualifying condition. I guess, I'd love to know, very, very short, I'm not asking you to tell us a big story or anything, but how would you say, you could probably get cannabis other way, through another qualification. What would it have meant? What did it mean to you to have cannabis qualified as treatment for post-traumatic stress? Did that have specific meaning or any specific value?
It has a huge meaning and value to me because, first of all, I came in on the conversation earlier where I was hearing, 22 a day, and I was shaking my head. It's more in the hundreds, 80s to hundreds. And I myself, even most recently, went around with a terrible bout of considering taking my own life because of the PTSD and the impact of being in the military and the impact of a bunch of stuff that's happened to me in my life. And to be recognized that we're not just crazy, that there's something real about the impact that war has, that military has on people. And to be acknowledged that is a qualifying factor is huge validation because it's important to start laying the groundwork to understand more and more and get more funding behind doing specific studies with veterans and PTSD and so on. It was a huge step in that process and a huge validation that opened so many doors for us veterans here in Colorado, including right after that happened, the Denver VA was doing open studies with veterans with PTSD and marijuana. It was really great.
Sierra, just to go on that point, I'm an ex-Navy nurse, so ex-military too, but you'll notice that Mike and Al both said PTS. And part of that is because of what you're saying, post-traumatic stress disorder, trying to say, it's not really a disorder, it's a normal response to abnormal stress.
Yes.
So that to an extent, you need like a sociopath or some kind of psychopath who comes out of a military, especially, wartime thing and says, hey, I had a good time. Of course it messes with your head. There's just terrible things that go on. And so it's normal. That's a healthy person will be crushed by it. And then you got Ethan Russo, who will say that post-traumatic stress is causes an endocannabinoid deficiency.
Yes.
Your body
Yes.
has been, you know, the whole purpose of the endocannabinoid system is to protect us from stressors.
Yes.
When it's bombarded with stress so much, it tires out, and you need that supplement. You need a cannabis to help put you back in balance. So a lot of times we'll just say post-traumatic stress symptoms or something
I
like
like that. I like that. And I would like to adopt that verbology, because it is kind of hard to say post-traumatic stress disorder, because I don't consider myself to be a disordered person. I consider myself to be very sane, very, you know, grounded and contributing person to society. So yeah, I get that. I get that terminology. I will adopt that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we first saw that start about 20 years ago, actually, in the medical communities of South America, where we had folks making presentations from those countries down there to us here.
Hello.
And it was PTS parentheses, small d parentheses. And yeah, I never like saying disorder either. And you know, none of us do.
Right there.
And Martel, you're there again, man.
I think I'm suffering with about an ounce of stress at the present time. It is measurable.
Yeah.
The mother girl. Hey.
Well, somebody brought up
humor.
we're talking about the pandemic on this tour, and we're trying to spread love. You know, Casper's got us on a mission. But on the pandemic side, someone did bring up a question the other day and asked, you know, what I thought about the virus itself, the pandemic causing post-traumatic stress. And I don't know. I can say this, that a lot of the post-traumatic stress that we've seen has been not a singular thing, that even people that were you know, victims of very traumatic and violent things, like things blowing up around them and with them, still, even some of these people have experiences and other traumas that happen in their life, and it could very well be a cumulative thing. If it is cumulative, then it certainly would bode well that the human race wouldn't just come out of this with a huge post-traumatic stress. But I don't know. I'd be curious about you guys' perspective on that.
When I was a counselor for Vietnam veterans, I worked for the Agent Orange program and the VA. Mary Lynn was right alongside me, helping the guys and girls with substance use problems. But what we found quite by accident, I say we, myself and the other peer counselors that I worked with, who were all non-vets, all combat non-vets, we found by accident, Michael, that I think it was around 40% of the guys we were talking to had some sort of trauma, serious trauma, before they ever went in the military. And then there's the trauma itself. Now, I dealt with Vietnam veterans, but my parents were both World War II veterans. They both served in the Army in North Africa in World War II. So they came home with post-traumatic stress. I grew up with it. I then went in the military, and it's all over the place. So I guess the point is that with post-traumatic stress, it does not go away. And the more repetition that you have with trauma, the harder it is to even control it. So I guess my point is, between World War II and Vietnam, it's boring, but it isn't. The average combat soldier in World War II saw about 2 weeks of combat. Now, that didn't mean everybody only saw 2 weeks, but the average was about 2 weeks of combat. In Vietnam, the average age of the combatant in World War II was 26. The average age of the combatant in Vietnam was 19, and they averaged 287 days of combat.
Wow.
So you can expect you have a bad day today on 420 if you're in combat, and tomorrow you can look forward to another bad day, and the day after that probably another bad day, and maybe a whole damn week of bad days. Wow. And then they let you rest for a couple of days, and those are probably bad days too, because it's raining on you, or they're rocketing you and watering you while you're trying to have a beer, a warm beer. And then it's go out and let's have another 6 or 7 days of bad days. So this continuous trauma, this pounding on your brain, as Mary Lynn says, it wears out your endocannabinoid system. Hell, it wears out your whole damn everything, and it takes a time to recover. So think about these traumas. It's just not something that happens, which is terrible. You get a terrible automobile accident, and your mother dies, or your best friend. You're gonna live with that the rest of your life, I guarantee you. But for the Vietnam veterans and the other guys that I'm talking about, where 40% of them had already had previous traumas, and then they go into this system where they get 287 more of them.
Hello?
Cannabis is the only thing that helps them. The only thing I've ever seen in my life, talking to thousands of these men and women, that helps.
I wanted to, could you guys, I'm trying to catch up real quick. I woke up.
It is the 420 window for the mountain time. I mean, for the Central Standard Time right now. Coming into mountain time.
Hang on. I just want to say hi, Andrea.
Yeah, I see Andrea. Where'd
Well,
she go?
welcome.
Hi
That's
there.
what I'm trying to.
Hi there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff.
You know,
So I see
Yeah, we're coming into 420 Colorado here in 15 minutes.
man.
Yeah, Colorado. Oh, that's the big one.
Yeah, it is.
420 in Colorado.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good stuff.
fantastic.
So I see y'all met Sierra. She's amazing.
Thank you so much, Martel, for introducing me to this amazing group of people. I'm really happy that you did that. I think I would love to be able to just, I'm the little talking head on this thing. I can talk about many different aspects. And so it seems like this is a really great group of people to connect with. So thanks so much. I really appreciate that, Martel.
Oh, yeah. I was so excited to have y'all on for sure. And I was like, oh, let me go and get this done. I woke up and I was like, it's funny. You're sitting in the middle of the campfire proverbially, and I was like, yeah. And so I'm glad Andrea got on. Andrea, how you doing today? What are you doing? How you been spending your 420?
You know what? On calls, and I was on a call with a group out of Colorado and New Mexico, and it was our 420. And so my partner and I on this call are like, woo, it's 420. They said, well, you need to stop. It's not 420 here. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not quite
good.
420
So I
Colorado yet.
want to frame it properly because she's such a giant in the industry. I want to frame her properly, and she's done so much. So she's one of the original founders of Women's Grow. She was literally on the bootstraps to the ground.
Nice shirt, Gary. Check Gary's shirt there. Colorado 420.
Yeah. Sweet. And so I couldn't even begin to describe her whole career if I wanted to. And so, Dre, can you give us some context to exactly just what all that you've done and had your foot in? Because she's really paved the way for a lot of these women in the grow in the grow industry as far as just everything goes. So, Drea, your floor.
Well, I just happen to live in Texas, so I'm not the best technical video chick. So I just want to, if you guys can hear me, just wave, I guess, a little bit there.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I just happen to live in Dallas, Texas, and one of the, this very conservative state, and I probably am one that is conservative, but I got into the industry well over 6 years ago. It's a pain or a passion, right? And
Yeah.
so I've always been an advocate for social justice. Okay, if you haven't noticed, I am a Black woman. And so at the end of the day, I've never been opposed to marijuana, cannabis, or anything of the sort. It was always, to me, what was reasonable and what was unreasonable. And so I became my mother's primary caregiver. I'd worked for a pretty large company out of Los Angeles and was, fairly successful for those, if you're looking at corporate America. But I had an opportunity to take care of my mother, and I became my mother's primary caregiver. And I did that full time for about 4 years. Sorry, I don't even know what year it is. 2 years. Yeah.
That's a good 420.
Well, she was sick for about 4 years, and then I had resigned and took care of her full time. And I tell everyone that she had everything but cancer, meaning heart disease, kidney failure, everything. She's had atherosclerosis, everything. And so I'm, you know, I'm in my 40s and I'm moving, and I had my daughter, she went off to college, and I'm doing my thing. But I was the most flexible one, and probably what we realized, my mother and I, that I was her person. And so it was no place I would have rather been but with her in those 2 years. But in that, also having a very culinary background, I knew how to cook the flour, okay? And so even though I'm watching you guys smoke, I don't smoke, but I consume cannabis. I consume it in my food. I consume it on my body. I consume it. You could never test me, I tell people, okay? Because I wouldn't pass, because I consume it the way that God made it to be. And so being in the southern sector of the United States, more of that Bible buckle, you know, for many years, you know, they call me she's the weed head, she's the weed head. But then I'd be at church and everybody coming over to me talking about, now what you do again? You know, because they have questions. And so when I was taking care of my mother, I knew that she had dialysis, you know, end stage renal dialysis going on with her kidneys, and everything was just it was crazy. And I tell people I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, but I got enough sense to know if somebody's giving you 25 pills to take in a day, one of those does not go with the other. One doesn't match. And then also knowing that for every one condition that you are diagnosed with, that there is a protocol, that there could be up to 32 prescriptions written for one condition. So if I've got high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney failure, everything, how is it that you can responsibly prescribe this to me? So I said, you know what, Mom, I just got to get you out of the bed. And so she wasn't eating. She wasn't, she's sick, right? But just the most joyous woman you'd ever meet in your life. So because I knew how to cook it, I began putting it in her food, from spaghetti sauce, from, you know, butters, from using it as oregano. And that's what I would tell her, it was oregano. Or putting it, you know, on the egg and putting it, and she smoked. This is the crazy part. She smoked. I did eventually get her to vape cannabis, but that was after she said, when I told her I did this, I would put it in her food, you guys, for about 8 months, and I didn't tell her. And so one day I finally told her, because I wanted to see the results, right? And so one day, this was back in 2013, I was doing this, 2013 and 14 and so forth. And I finally told her what I was doing, because I noticed the difference. The doctor noticed the difference. And I said, Mom, I've been putting, you know, some weed in your food, you know? And so I was going straight to hell. She was so mad at me. And then a couple of days later, she yells down the hallway, you guys, and she calls me Angie. She says, Angie, come here. I said, okay, come tell me about the green stuff, because I've been wanting to ask someone about, could I even take it? I said, yes, woo! And that was such a turning point, because my mother in her 70s, from Louisiana, Baptist raised, just a doll by every stretch of the imagination. It would not be someone you would think would want to put cannabis into their diet. But I tell you what, my mother was my biggest cheerleader. I remember going to the hospitals and having conversations with her physicians, and they were like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I told them, and she would say, hey, y'all need to come talk to my daughter. She'd tell everybody like I had some in my pocket. And that's not what was going on. But what happens a very emotional time. My mother she coded one time. We're back and forth in the hospitals. And her physician, who's a pretty well-known cardiologist here in North Texas, he asked me what I was doing, and I told him. And he says to me, he says, will you do something for me? Will you go to my doctor's office, to his office, talk to his NP, his nurse practitioner, and he says, listen, I don't know how to have this conversation with my nurse practitioner whose daughter has epilepsy. They want to use cannabis, marijuana, I said, whatever, because, you know, people don't know what to call it. And so, would you talk to her? And I said, well, let me find out what the healthiest way I could have this conversation. And so that's what led me back in 2014, end of 2014, was launched a company called Healthway Education System. What was the healthiest way to have these conversations with medical professionals and in regions of our country, where I am in Texas and Louisiana, where they have no culture of cannabis as medicine. And for anyone who does, they're doing it very quietly. They're never going to tell their neighbors, right? But they want to know. And so I created a company called Healthway Education Systems. In that, I found Women Grow. I was a part of Women Grow when Jane West had originally launched it there in Colorado. You talk about a blessing that I even found them. This is when she first started. She had just started having meetings there in Denver. I met after she had her, Rolling Stones had interviewed her back in 2014, like August or October 2014. I met her like December 2014. I became one of the original 120 women that helped not launch it, but help build the core of what Women Grow was. And that was just not by accident. So I'm in Texas, so it required me to leave. And so for about 3 years, I'd come home to just change my luggage because I was a part of the very first Cannabis Congress, the very first one that was in Los Angeles. I was a part of the International ICBW, the one that started in San Francisco when they brought in the former Surgeon General, Joycelyn Elders. And so I've been blessed and very fortunate, the entire fabric of this community, that I made some amazing relationships with. And so with that, I brought it to Texas. And for about 2 years, we had the events. I helped bring in the very first conferences that were in Texas. And, you know, it's just been a very satisfying journey. And I came into you guys' conversation about PTSD. And a part of what we did, I say we, I don't say I, when it comes to Healthway, is we were one of the very first in the country to independently have curriculum to train in CE units over here at the Byrnes over here for the nurse, and medical nursing, pharmacology, and psychiatry. So you could come to us. We were not associated with any hospital system. We're not associated with any university system. And we were able to build out a master curriculum catalog of work that could train medical professionals in what I call cannabinoid therapy, right? Because it is more than just smoking, right? It's the emotional piece of things. And when people come to me and say, hey, you know, my son, he addicted to weed, really? What did you do? What happened at 3, 5, 7, and 9? And until we get to that point, you can't tell me he's addicted. And so when we're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm with you. I don't like calling it a disorder, because God made us so amazing. We heal ourselves. And if he made all things, that means he made cannabis. And he can't do one thing wrong if he can do everything else right. And so where I am again in the southern sector, I have to have these conversations very long with those who want to say that I'm doing something immoral or unethical, or that I'm telling people they need to take marijuana. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm also asking you is, did you exhaust everything before you decided to take all that medication that is designed to kill you? It is not designed to take you off, ever. So I piss a lot of people off, but that's okay. That's just what I do. I'm sorry.
We have, sorry to interrupt you here, but we're 1 minute from 4:20.
Oh,
Colorado. So,
Whoop,
Who's-
whoop.
who's going to lead us into Colorado 4:20? Please,
Yeah.
somebody take the floor.
I think it might be appropriate
Someone
since you're in
from
Colorado.
Colorado, hint, hint.
Ha ha, 420.
Yes.
I am so excited about 420 this year. I just
30
really hope
seconds.
for the, it's like this wish, you know what I mean? I'm Cherokee Indian, and so we give a lot of thanks whenever we utilize plant medicine. And each time I light up, every single time I light up, I give thanks. And so this 420 on 2020, I give thanks to everybody coming together, all of us here right now that are helping so many people.
5,
And that it
4,
just continues
3,
to go.
2. Happy 420, Colorado.
It's like there should be some music playing. Where's the DJ? Where is
Yeah,
it?
really.
Where's the DJ? Toke it up, toke it up. Very good. So where is everyone? Where's the Byrnes at? Where are you guys at? Al Byrne?
Oh, wait a minute. You got to turn on the microphone.
We were muted.
Yeah, we were muted. We didn't want to interrupt anybody because we were cheering and doing things at 420 here. We're in Northwest Florida, near the Gulf Coast. Everything is pretty mild around here as far as the virus goes.
Mhm.
And we're in a county that when Florida okayed medical cannabis here by initiative, voted over 80% of the residents of the county we live in said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Mhm.
And Florida, I have said before, but it needs repeating. Apparently, California, Illinois, and Florida, at least, I'm not sure.
There's some other states.
I'm sure there's other states, but with all this pandemic stuff, they have declared that medical cannabis dispensaries are essential. Are essential. And as Mike said earlier, that's a big deal. You know, we've all said for years, you, us, everybody has said it's essential for health, for our emotional health, or physical health, whatever the hell it's for. And now we're actually getting people are actually saying, you know, these guys were right. How about that?
I actually think 420 is essential.
Yeah. Yeah, 420 is essential, right?
We're taking it around the world and we're finding that everywhere. We've been doing this for a few hours now. Might be obvious.
That's right. Martel joined us again. Apparently he had to go take a nap for a little while.
Yeah, what a wussy. He only worked 20 straight hours in the end. He fell down.
For introductions, I'm Mary Lynn Mathre, a nurse. Al and I are both veterans and started Patients Out of Time back in 1995. So this is our 25th anniversary
So
year.
we may know each other.
Yeah, we've communicated in the past.
We have, haven't we? It is nice to see you.
Same here.
So you do you remember me when I was launching Healthway? Do you remember any of that?
No.
No, I remember your name, and I don't remember a lot of the launching stuff, and that's just because there's too many things going on.
Well, I tell you what, I thank you, Martel, for putting this together, and I will make it known. I'm going to put my phone number here, and I would love to get in contact with you guys. So,
Martel just told us that his phone has died. He will come back.
Oh,
but it is nice to see you guys.
Well, as long as it's just his phone.
No kidding.
I went to Colorado for a smoke and my phone died.
I might not stay awake for California.
Don't read too much into that.
I'm starting
Colorado,
all over.
gosh. Yeah, one of my favorite things to do in the whole world, driving through Colorado, you can almost stop anywhere on these highways and just point a camera out the window. Don't even have to look what you pointed at, just snap the picture and you'll come up with something phenomenally beautiful. And it just goes on and on like that on all these different roads going in and out of Colorado. And every time I would go, I'd be driving across country and you know, heading out to LA or whatever, and I'd have to, even if I had a detour to go through Colorado, I'd go through.
I have a mental image of your drive. Imagination is a wonderful thing. You stick your camera out the window and take a photograph and you'll see something beautiful. And I'm imagining there's cannabis plants everywhere.
Now, that's
like that in Colorado. Are there cannabis plants everywhere? Please make an old man happy and tell me that's what it's like when it's legal.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Mike always drives naked across country.
Oh, don't give that away.
We'll never get that image out of our mind.
Especially Colorado, because it's one of these places where you could be driving along and get out of the car and make a snowball. You know, there's enough snow on the side of the road to make a snowball, and then you know, just stop a little while later and, you know, with a t-shirt on, have a picnic. Yeah, it's kind of very few places like that in the
you
world.
can be like hanging out in your car, anything that's called private property, so any owned thing besides governmental land, you can light up and just wave at the cop that drives or walks by, and they wave back.
We used to do that in an illegal market. They don't allow us to do that anymore, no, because we're making too much progress, so they smack us down now.
Oh.
They have to find another reason to get on you, you know. People, but I'll go, I know, like, you know, again, I live in Texas, and so now that they've got the whole hemp, you know, I'm a co-founder of a group called Texas Hemp Harvesters. We just legalized, you know, brought that in. We've got a very poor cannabis license. It's a joke, you know, and, you know, they bring me in to try and talk to their law enforcement. I'm like, you really don't want me to come, because that would hold you responsible for your actions. So you sure you want me to go? You know, you sure you want me to go? And they're city managers and so forth, and they get it, but I quit talking to them personally, because they, you know, you've made your mind up, and you want to subject people to injustices that just, you have no, that's over. That time is done, and there's no reason to be able to put up with that. And, you know, I came in on your whole PTSD, and my heart is just very, very, very compassionate with that. You know, my daughter passed away 2 years ago. And in the middle of that, I was working with New York University with doing an entire, not New York University, they were fellows, or one of them was a professional at New School University in New York, but with a mental health group in New York. This is where I'm trying to go with this. And we were building out how to use cannabis for mental health, right? Because when you're talking about PTSD, I'm always relating it back to what, you know, the Byrnes, not Mary Lynn, but what's the Al next to you is saying. You have to ask the question. Before they went into the military, it was already present. And so now you have adverse childhood experiences. And so if that part of those who want to say that they've got a mental health issue, they've got PTSD, you got to get to the root of what caused it, because that buildup inside of that brain area, whether or not it's shaved or not, to cause the mental health, for bipolarity to show up, for schizophrenia to show up, for that to show up, there's other things that are happening. And I say, okay, do you like him smoking, or do you like him when he's not smoking? Well, I like him better. I said, well, you got to answer the question. I know it's a hard question. Do you prefer the sun high or not high? High. Okay. Now, the question is, what are they smoking? Because they can't smoke everything. We need to dial into what's going to respond to the inflammation. And so the smoking is not your problem. The smoking should be your friend. Now we need to go a little bit deeper and identify, Sierra, where the trauma happened. Because the marijuana and the cannabis is not your problem. There's a bigger problem than that. And so, you know, when my daughter passed away, I knew that she had a very aggressive onset of a manic schizoactive. Okay, she just had a baby, and it kind of pushed her over the edge. And she was a seer, so we all know that COVID was coming. We're not surprised about any of this nonsense, right? But you know, I knew that there was something that she needed to get the right strain. So Sierra and Al and Gage, I'm calling all my friends across the country to help identify, what would you give a patient like this? What would you give the loved one? Because I know she can't smoke high THC, but I know that we have some type of vibration in here at our farms that we can get her the proper medicine. And so now we are in COVID, right? And the COVID is not killing people, it's the anxiety, it's the stress, it's the trauma. And cannabis is now essential because you want to try and keep the chaos down that you created. So I'm sorry, y'all. We're talking to each other. We know this. My plea is that they will hear more of the reality now of what's happening. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and talking about its use for anxiety, I think the other thing that people were noting is domestic violence is up a bit again because people are stuck at home and not getting any breaks. Cannabis is just such a wonderful thing for that in itself.
But with that wisdom,
Al and I have to leave for a little bit.
Al has to go home and go to bed. And, not quite yet, but soon enough.
I've never seen that happen. Did you take my joint?
Well, Michael, carry on, gentlemen, ladies. It's been a pleasure over the last 24 hours or 8 days or however the hell long we've been doing it. But it's great. It's great meeting you guys. Carry on. We're all in this together, whether it's the virus or what we're trying to do to change stupid laws.
And if we can keep him up, we might bother our neighbors again to use their studio just to say goodnight at the end of this program.
Oh,
yeah, I feel bad. I was supposed to have Sonia on, and I slept right there. You always go the worst time. Like I've been up for a straight 40 hours, right? Like just out here getting it. And
we can tell. We can tell.
I missed my 420. Like of all the 420s, I smoked 22 420s. I missed my 420, right? And I'm like, how the hell do you pull that move? And so, but right now I'm trying to get my Leaf 411 on here. So I'm gonna have them contact you guys because I know you want to go. But that Leaf 411 organization, the nonprofit we partnered with, if it's okay, I want to give them your information so that we can put y'all in touch. Because I think there's a lot of correlation to be had there, based on what you're saying for a couple of days. And so she should be on right now. But if you got to go, maybe you can hop on later, or I'll try to arrange something in that light. Because I want y'all to meet. Everybody's been preaching that same thing. We all need to get these damn doctors educated. Like there needs to be a aftercare school or after school for the doctors. You know, like you do 6 years here, and then you do 2 years at your own university of our choice.
Yeah.
Come over to Healthway and get certified. Everybody has to do a couple of hours. Are you game?
Yes.
It very well could come to that. You know, when they introduced Suboxone to help with the methadone patients, it was mandatory that docs take a course on it. And it's like, one of these days it'll be mandatory for them to all learn about the endocannabinoid system in cannabis.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
They do take the class. You have some of them that are they're stuck in the system. They're stuck in the protocols that don't work. It is of no benefit to them. And whether they know it and admit it or not, you're choosing to not give your patient the options that they want to choose. And then, you know, when you're dealing with the mental health component, whether you're military dealing with the PTSD, then you want to start reporting shit. I'm sorry. Did I cuss? You get the point.
It's
You
happened
wanna
before.
start-
People have cussed
You
before.
want to start reporting things. You don't report because I'm choosing to do what I want to do. And even with children, we even did a K-12 curriculum in the state of Colorado. My little company, which I guess it wasn't little, but you know, we were the only ones in the United States, get this, that actually lobbied for the appropriation of dollars for K through 12 curriculum on cannabinoid therapy for children, so that we can train the counselors, so that we can train the nurses and the administrators for those who say that, because now when you are admitting a child into school, they want to know, of course, are they on medicine, right? They also now want to know, are you giving them any type of holistic, naturopathic medicine? What kind of mess is that? So you think I'm going to fall for it and tell you when you don't even know what data you're collecting? That's not right. And so, you know, we have the approach, let's train them, especially in the high schools. If I'm a parent to a young 9-year-old son who's impulsive, he's not bad. You have to understand what the brain is doing, and you would think early childhood development would know. But if you don't pay attention, when I don't have to give them the Adderall, which is the gateway, and that I can choose to give them a very low THC, high CBD profile to help adjust them throughout their day, and I can give it to them in an M&M. It doesn't have to be a pill. Oh, you don't want to hear that. Get out of here.
That's too responsible. Too much responsible parenting. What do you mean?
It makes too much sense. It makes too much sense for me to give the medicine to my child before they go to school, so they're not disruptive during the day and they're smoothing, and you be concerned about what I'm giving them. But you'll give them all that pharma all day long, and then now 20 years ago I'm dealing with a liver issue.
Yes. And I'm almost victim of one of those. Luckily, my parents threw me out when I was 13, because if they didn't, I would have been one of those too. I didn't get diagnosed for my ADHD till I was like 30 something. And even at that point, it wasn't really debilitating because I made it work for myself. And so there's a workaround there that's now an advantage for me, right? I can do 4 things at once really well. I just can't do one thing at once. And so as long as you learn yourself, which I took the time to do, then everybody's going to be different. But, you know, we didn't have any of this ADHD or abundant amounts of cancer and carcinogens in the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? There was none of this. They might get hit with some random flu, but we knew who we were, right? We trusted in the human body. We trusted that we were going to be able to repair ourselves because that's what we were written to do. Literally, our genomes are written to do that, right? Figure out what you got going on, repair yourself. Is it, okay? And so I really like everything you say just resonates with me so much all the time. I'm really just glad I got you on this platform, but I wanted to ask you a specific question because I know you're a capitalist in the same light I am, and navigating this when you have a heart and you're an empath, you kind of see these things, right? Hashtag empath life. And so what's your next, what's your pivot? What's your next moves you got coming up?
Well, other than making sure that I live in a building here in downtown Dallas. It's the old Sears building. It's probably the safest building in the entire city. It's made of concrete, right? Other than, you know, making sure that my neighbors here get what they need. They do know what I do for a living, okay? So they get what they need. But, you know, we are building out the Texas Hemp Harvesters Association. You know, hemp is the new commerce at this point. We don't know what's happening with everybody's grows. I've consulted you guys. I'm sure whatever phase we are in our career in this, whether the advocacy or for business, many licenses across the country, all of that is shifted. So now what's happening is the association that I'm co-founder of works directly with the Department of Agriculture. We are getting ready to do a lot of compliance for those who need standard operating procedures for their hemp. But we are building out at more of the industrial supply chain in Texas. There's enough people growing great cannabis, great hemp across the country. Texas is really not built to do that. We don't know what this flower is going to do legally, right? We have no clue. And so we're building out that coalition, the licenses that started when it comes to hemp. So we are, we'll be doing classes. One of our partners is Prairie View University, an HBCU, and then we're working directly with them along with Texas Tech University. But the pivot to that is to build that responsible supply chain of hemp. But we know that next year we go back to lobby. So everything that they're saying is essential inside of cannabis as medicine, the dispensaries need to be open. We hope to start beginning that lobbying the end of this year for next year when our legislation goes back into session, so that our marijuana, our MJ program can actually add the conditions that they approved last year. They shut it down, but y'all know that's a bunch of BS, but that's another conversation. but we are preparing so that we can lobby for a real legal MJ program so that full medicine can be available. Hemp is not, you don't use hemp to make CBD. You can, right? But that's not the best CBD you can get. And if that's where everybody wants to go, that's fine. But you need to grow it from the mother plant. You need to grow it from the real cannabis plant to get the medicine. And so you need a full, robust program to do that so that you can have all the cannabinoids, so that you can have the THCs and you can have the CBGs and the CBNs to treat conditions. All this stuff I hear to me, and I hate this, we're on Facebook Live and you'll hear me, but I mean it, is not real medicine. They're playing with people's emotions when we can legalize responsible access and truly treat those who want to be treated with real cannabinoids. And that includes the real plant, not just hemp. So I am on both sides. We need a responsible supply chain with hemp because we know it's going to go industrial, and we need to continue to build out those who want to have access. So that's what I'm doing. I'm busy.
That's what I like to hear. And Sarah, I got a question for you. First of all, did y'all go into the whole history? Like, did you cover the Olympics? Did you cover the Desert Storm? Or did you kind of?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I sleep too much, man. 1 hour. I'm never going to sleep again. I'm never going to sleep again, ever. And so, last year was a trying year. I think for both of us, we both had kind of trying years. Now, coming into this new, and I know you speak energies like I do, so the way the moons are aligning right now, specifically this weekend, but the energies that are coming into play, I know you feel them, right? Because I know how big of an empath you are. And so, what are you feeling right now internally, right? Like, what's on your cusp? What's in your head as far as not anything specific like COVID specific, but as far as for humanity? I know you feel something. I know it's there. This I know to be true.
You know what? Thank you for asking. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that. I really feel like a month ago, I felt that people were really impacted as a whole, being tapped into sort of like a whole consciousness grid, being able to feel everybody, all around, all everywhere, all over the world. And sorry, I apologize. My cat is about to rip my headphones out. Okay, there she goes. She's like, oh, mom's getting animated. I'm moving. So I felt a real desperation and a real panic in the beginning. And I know I'm online not only speaking cannabis and, as an Episcopalian minister and also as an empath intuitive. I'm registered with the FBI as a psychic, and I used to help search and rescue until that became too much of a toll, finding cadavers and so on, lost people they couldn't find. So it's like all of these different platforms, all these different places that I feel blessed that I can speak to people, that I've been going on and just being like, people really calm down. The thing that I have come to believe and understand, and all the different conversations that we've been having here today, is that we sort of like kind of create what we want. And if we wanted to get caught up in the fear and we wanted to get caught up in the drama and stuff like that, I think the impact on some people was really starting to have that kind of a ripple. And then me and a bunch of my other, spirit squad, soul squad, get out there and all these different platforms through Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and so on, and just trying to get everybody to calm down. Like, really just what a blessing it is to be able to sleep in. What a blessing it is to be able to be with your family. What a blessing it is to just stop everything. Like, I've talked to so many friends, I train with these group of women and come from all different walks of faith. And we come together empowering women to be leaders, both in their personal life and in the world. And the whole thing is like, we're just like, everybody calm, focus on what you have. And if you can, give to those that are really struggling right now. And there's been angels out there. There's been warriors out there on the front line, helping the homeless, needless to say, all the medical personnel. If you stop focusing on this panic, start to think about how amazing the people are, not just American, but people across the world helping one another right now. There are so many people that are heroes, and first responders and nurses and doctors, and those that are keeping the world turning, cleaning the toilets, keeping the electricity on, making sure we can do this with each other right here. They're expanding networks and they're just sending people out. And I know there's like all these different impacts and there's all these different experiences, but if we choose to focus on how everybody's rising up right now, I feel like we're turning a tide where everybody's starting to realize that, they're stuck at home. And then there's this huge outpouring of support on television, because what are we doing? We're on our tablets, we're on our TVs, we're watching things. Yeah. Of all these companies coming together saying, we're in this together. It's okay. Here's a suicide hotline. Here's a this, here's a that. And there's been such a huge and massive coming together. Let's focus on that. How we're doing that, how we can change this, and we can keep whether you believe in your religious or your spiritual belief, you think positive, you're a realist, you're a scientist. You can even speak to the scientists. You keep yourself de-stressed, you're going to keep yourself from getting stressed out, and you're not going to get sick. Bottom line.
That's big time. I think you just set up for the perfect roll-in, because I want to introduce from Leaf 411 now. I've been talking about you all day, like at least 4 different sections. I've been talking about you. So I was like, oh, this great roll-in right there. Like, that's perfect. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit. This is Leaf 411. We partnered with them on this project, and I've been just extra adamant about getting them online right now. So that's cool. Why don't you speak to us a little bit?
All right. Can you hear me all right?
Welcome. Yep. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I put my headset on because hopefully you can hear me more clearly, but actually this is what I look like every day. We run the first national cannabis nurse hotline. So we are a team of registered nurses that are all cannabis trained, and we take calls from all across the country, answering any cannabis health related questions. So we are so excited that Martell has invited us in and to talk about our organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we launched our first program, which is our hotline program, in October, and tested it out through January. And we also do outreach as well. So we are boots on the ground. We go around to as many people that will let us in, which has been really exciting because we've been actually able to go with physicians into places that would normally not even want to have the conversation about cannabis. We went to one of our big medical centers here in Colorado, and for the first time welcomed a cannabis conversation into their graduating residents who are going to be seeing those patients and involved with them, and maybe them expressing their want to use plant medicine. So we've been able to say, hey, we created this wonderful platform that is a virtual nurse call center. So we wanted to start out being nonprofit because we wanted it free. We thought, the public needs to have free access. Anytime they can call our 800 number, and I'll share my screen so you can see our phone number and our website. But you can call anytime, Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We have nurses on the line. We actually, as soon as COVID-19 hit, we opened our resources to answer triage COVID questions. We talk about COVID and cannabis. We have what we call our Leaf Library online. So you can go into our website, and I'll share that with you right now. And you can go into our website and you can actually, let's see, let me go into my share and pop that up. And you can see down below, I hope you can see that, that says leaf411.org, and sharing my screen with you so you can see. It is 844 Leaf 411. That's 844-532-3411. And I'll stop sharing that here. Hopefully you guys could see that. And we, like I said, we take calls from all over. We're a nonprofit. So what's happening right now is, you know, our country is struggling financially. And where do I get my health related questions answered? And that's when you call us. When you want to introduce plant medicine into your life, we guide you on safe use. We have a Leaf Library that has science on there. We have also programs. So if someone's in crisis and one of our nurses can hear information about them maybe having trouble putting food on the table, housing concerns, we've partnered with an organization called Aunt Bertha. So you go into our library and you go into crisis and support, you plug in your zip code from wherever you live, and it'll pull up free and reduced programs in that area to help you out. We try to give as many resources as possible. We have wonderful industry that stepped up to the plate in Colorado and said, we want to make sure this is free, so we're going to give philanthropically to you. We have wonderful dispensaries like Seed and Smith and Lightshade and Smoking Gun and incredible manufacturers. I'm sure some of you know Wana, Incredibles, Ripple. We have Stanley Brothers that philanthropically give to keep this organization running. And it's really important right now. We would love anyone that has any contacts to funding. You can go on our website under our Support Us, under individual giving. We have our Facebook link, lots of funding options there to help us out, because we want to keep this free. We have to keep this free so we can go out to the public and hear their questions and guide them.